Hello, welcome to the stage, Kat. Thank you so
Hi.
much for that fantastic talk. We already have some questions streaming in, and I first am really curious to ask, so I know it sounds like you wanted to understand better your plastic use. Was there something that pushed you over the edge, or a particular moment where you're like, I need to understand this better, I need to spend some time on this?
Not a particular moment, but I think it's like anything. We're very dictated by what the media says at the time, and I think just at that particular point in time, there was just a lot of media coverage. And like any of my personal projects, I kind of do it with the hope that I'll learn more about whatever it is that I don't know much about. And for me,
Sure.
I didn't really know anything about plastic and recycling at all. So this whole research part of it into just how it works was enlightening.
Yeah. And as you were doing research for the project, was there anything what was some of the most surprising things you learned, which maybe they're things you already shared with us, but is there anything that sticks out particularly?
I think as I was putting everything together, doing the actual data measurements and things, what was surprising was that the more I did it and the more plastic I collected and stored away, it didn't go down. Like my use over the months, I kind of expected, at the start of the year it would be quite high, but then as I kind of learn more and maybe change my behavior a bit, it would start to tailor off and decrease. But that didn't happen. And when you analyze the plastic that you were actually, consuming, a lot of it was just food packaging, and you can't really get away from that. So
Sure.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like with anything, in order to adjust those things drastically, there's so many habits you have to change, and it's a lot of work. Where are the turtles now? People want to know. Any vision for their future?
Well, yeah, the future kind of changed a bit in 2020 when COVID kind of made physical exhibitions a little bit harder, because that was the intent that I had when I first started, was to have some sort of exhibit in a real life spot somewhere. But then that whole thing changed. So at the moment they are here. I have a couple of them on me right now. They're quite
Nice.
cute.
Oh.
So yeah, I seriously made so many of them. So they're all just sitting in my house, and I photographed a lot of them. So they kind of live in this digital world at the moment, but I mean, who knows? Maybe one day when we can all get together at some point, they might make an appearance. But I think the purpose for their being here kind of changed a little bit when COVID hit.
Sure. Yeah. And do you have any instructions or anything you would share with others if they want to do something similar?
Yeah, I do actually. There's a website, myplasticfootprint.co.nz, and I've got kind of step-by-step instructions on how you can make your own turtles. It's a little bit fiddly, but it is fun, and it's quite exciting when you put this relatively boring looking plastic into these molds and they come out all beautiful and bright and colorful. And yeah, it's actually quite fun to do with kids too.
Sure. Cool. I'm sure folks will be excited to check that out and potentially try their own project. Actually, I wanted to ask this first, which was someone said, this is such an incredible project, and I imagine very labor intensive. So how did you keep yourself motivated and disciplined to continue with it for a full year? Did you have a routine? Are there any tips for anyone who might want to start a physical data viz project?
Yeah, I don't think I realized when I started just what this was going to involve. Because this particular one, it was like a whole year of completely changing your habits. And I think you've got to be really passionate about what you're doing, and that's got to rub off to whoever it is that you're living with, if you're doing it and it's going to take over your house, because it did. I had bags of plastic stored in the roof, just because I didn't want to analyze it all at once, I guess. So it was all kind of done in stages, and yeah, you've just got to really, really love what you're doing, and the end goal for me was always something I kept in mind. I mean, I could tell when I talked to people and I would say to them, oh, I'm washing and drying and storing my plastic. They honestly they didn't get it. So always have a kind of a vision of where you want to get to in the end, and if you just continue to keep that in mind, that helps.
Were there like friends or family who at first really didn't get it, but once they started seeing some of the outputs, it was like, oh, that's what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much the whole of 2019, they didn't get it. But as soon as the turtles came along and they could just see this fun kind of way of visualizing something that was a way of measuring my life almost, they got it then.
Sure. And for first-time users on using plastic to make art, is there anything you learned about any concerns around toxicity when molding or melting plastics?
Yeah, definitely. So that's why you sort by type. And there are some types that I just wouldn't go near with a heat gun or anything like that. Just stay away from certain plastic types.
Sure.
And then I picked the type 4, which is what I made the turtles out of, because it was quite common. I mean, it's like the bags that you get your bread in, and it's kind of everywhere. And when you heat it to the point that you don't burn it, you don't want to burn it because then you're going to get fumes and it's not going to be very nice at all. But if you just heat it a little bit, those bonds between what it's made of kind of just lessen a bit, and you can mold it quite easily without any fumes. So pick the right plastic and do it at the right temperature and you'll be fine.
Nice. And what are you working on now? People are looking forward to seeing more of your work.
Yeah. Nothing in the physical space. I think I've done one big set of physical projects to last me a while now. But I like to work in the space that looks at kind of humanizing numbers, so humanizing data, and that whole being able to see the hands, as I talked about in my talk, that really drives me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no particular project. I'm looking at trying to improve my digital art skills, because I think that's some way of going. If you merge that with data viz in some way, and I don't know what that way is yet, I'm still kind of experimenting. It'll just go a little bit further in pushing that, having empathy for what it means. And
sure.
I think the term data empathy and having some sort of empathy for our numbers, that's kind of been brought up in a few talks at Outlier this year. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that's something that people are trying to communicate, and just I'm quite passionate about figuring out different ways of doing that.
Yeah, totally. There was also, even last year, I remember there was a talk completely devoted to thinking about that as well. So you said you're dabbling in various things right now, and did you want to talk about any of them, or?
Well, I've got one of my my new one of my pieces up on the what is it, the Viz gallery on the
cool.
the conference that you can go and have a look at. It's the first digital art piece that I've put some sort of data into. Mm-hmm. And so it's just trying to figure out where that's going to go. Gurman did a really good talk earlier on PhotoViz, and I think that's a little bit moving towards how do we create that empathy and with how we're communicating, because data viz is just a form of communication, so we can put anything else that we want to in with this data to try and make it resonate with our audience. So just ways of doing that. I think I'm using Procreate on the iPad and just kind of experimenting with drawing in that way, just to see if I can combine what I make with data.
Cool. And back to the turtles. How many hours did the whole process of creating the turtles take?
You don't want to know. It was a long
each
time.
Turtle?
Each turtle, I mean, it's a whole big step-by-step thing. So you make like a big batch at one time. So maybe each turtle 10 minutes.
And you made how many total?
I didn't get to that 9,000, that's for sure. I think I got to nearly a month. So, you know, that's a lot of turtles.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I started, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make 9,000 turtles. And then as I started the process, I'm not gonna make 9,000 turtles. It was very, very time consuming. And I ended up with a lot of burnt fingers.
Oh, sure. Well, if people have other questions, please post them in the chat. And while I'm waiting on that, is there anything else that like you particularly want to share? Something that maybe I should have asked about that is something that you learned, or something else you want to talk about around this? And it's okay if there's not. I just thought I'd leave the opening.
And it's funny because well, most of the project, all the data collection happened in 2019.
Yeah.
And then the experimentation happened in 2020, and you know, we're now in 2022. So even just putting this presentation together, it was quite fun actually, because it was kind of like going back in time and saying, oh, that's what I did, and oh, that's pretty cool. But I definitely recommend some sort of project where you get to step away from the screen. I think for me it was a nice experience because a lot of the work that I do just revolves around my computer and looking at apps on my computer, and just being able to do something, and something artistic, something creative, but still kind of in the industry that you're in, just away from your computer was a bit different.
Yeah, that would be nice. And I mean, for most people that work at their computers, and then a lot of us also look at our phones probably way too much. So like by the end of the day, it's a lot of hours. Since said, this is fantastic. Is there another project you have enough passion about to spend that much time
on? Not currently. That's not to say that there won't be one in the future. But I think any passion project, or any project that you just do without some sort of, you know, compensation in some way, you have to be passionate about it. You have to see the reason why you're doing it, the end goal, and because it's a big chunk of your life that you're going to spend working on it. But I kind of see it that I do a lot of my life is spent working for clients and doing their kind of data viz and doing it their way with their brand constraints and everything else that goes with it. But when you have your own projects like this, whatever it is, you get to call and make all the creative decisions, and I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Kat, thank you so much for the talk and for the answering all these questions. It was lovely to have you. And at this point, we're going to go on to the last bit of Uncomp in a bit. So thank you so much.
Thank you.